Hello everybody, Lawrence Fleming here again. Well, we continue to wait. And what do? We have to keep busy. The worst thing you can do when you're waiting for something is to sit and watch the clock. Watch pot never boils, as they say. So we have to keep busy, but we've got things to do. But I'm reminded as we're having to go out and do these things that there was a TV show that was on for a while, and I think it's got a little bit of a rebirth recently, called Dirty Jobs. Mike Rowe was an advocate of, let's get back to basics. Let's do the things that we know we need to do. We're told by the elites that if you don't go to college, you won't amount to anything. And once they got everybody brainwashed to do that, they started changing the curriculum enough so that it's no longer an education, it's indoctrination. You will learn to hate the government and love the world. You become an advocate for global warming or global cooling. Well, of course, our world is floating in space, and the sun has cycles. The earth has cycles. A few years back, it was global cooling. We're destroying the world. We have to do what the government tells us to do. We've been told many times by government leaders and experts that they know what's going on and that we better do it or the earth will be gone by the time we figure it out. Some predicted we'd be only here another 50 years. Well, that's 60, 70 years ago. They're not experts on the world, they're experts on people and how to manipulate them. And we've seen what experts contribute to the world environment. We've seen them recently during the Big C. I'm still not going to mention the word, but you know what I mean. They had all kinds of experts that said if you don't do this, this many people are going to die. And they got everybody to lockstep with them. The problem is that, yeah, people died, but people died from the flu. But it wasn't as catastrophic as they said. All right, don't want to get off on that. So the bottom line is we got to get out there like Mike Rowe would do by example. Get out there and get our hands dirty. Jesus sat in the house of tax collectors, had dinner with them. They were hated almost as much as the ones today. They were corrupt. The government said you owed 10 shekels, they'd ask for 15 and pocket the other part. And the government knew that they were skimming, but they got their money and that's all that mattered. Our workers in certain parts of government are skimming themselves, stealing. And the government knows about it, and they know that they're getting their part, so they're not doing anything. So, get out there and get dirty. Get out there in the world that's not going to get better. It's getting worse. Get out there and get the gospel out. God will give you the means. I've said it doesn't matter whether you're bedridden or not. There's something you can do. Making phone calls, it doesn't matter. But get out there. We're running out of time, and we do know what's coming. They don't. What's coming should scare us to death without God, without Jesus, without knowing where we're going. It would scare us to death. People out there are scared. They're running scared. They're going about their business of going to work because they have to, because they've been trained And if they don't work, they don't eat. We have all kinds of psychological tests that have gone on over the ages that we've watched. And we don't realize that we're part of it. Ring the bell, the dog drools. Pavlov. But we're part of that. They ring the bell. It might be threat of war, it might be a threat of famine, a threat of this, threat of that. All these threats keep us on edge, and we don't know what they're doing. There are people, the fringe people, are reacting. We just had a mass murderer kill, 11, 12 people and shoot a bunch of others up in Maine. It's the tip of the iceberg. As of this video, they haven't caught him, but he was in Maine, so of course he had a boat. And he took off in it, or it's missing anyway. And they could easily be sympathizers with him that are keeping him and not telling the police where they're at. All right, I need my... Once I get back outside full time, I won't have this in and out raspy stuff in my throat. I live in a house that is well insulated. It does have a heater and an air conditioner, but they're very seldom turned on. But when they do turn on, it dries the air. All right. So God will protect us. He will come and get us if necessary. He will provide people with the ability to protect us. So don't worry. My story this morning is going to be based on God helped Abram before he became Abraham. Helped Abram save Lot. Now you're all familiar with the Sodom and Gomorrah story of you have to get out of town because God's going to destroy you. But he saved Lot before that. Literally had to go rescue him. There's been war in the Middle East forever. And there were kings that were fighting amongst themselves. And they came in. And if you remember, Abraham brought Lot, his brother's son, with them when they left. Leave your father's home and go out to a land that I will show you. So Abraham took Lot with him and they went out. They were doing very well. They were prospering. But they were butting heads from the point of view that, they each had herds of sheep and they were grazing over each other and they were getting close together. And Abraham said, look, I'll let you pick. You go wherever you want to go and I'll take, there's the east and west. You take one, I'll take the other. And we'll go as far away from each other as we can. And they did. They separated. Lot went east. He went to the land of Sodom and Gomorrah. And Abram kept the land near the coast and the plain area. So he was in good shape. And again, he flourished and Lot flourished. But Lot chose to move to Sodom. He didn't have the calling of God. Abram did. And I'm sure Sodom, even at this point in time, was not a good place to be. It wasn't quite ready to be destroyed, but it was a good place. And they came out of a land of idol worship. And I'm sure they were doing that and among other things. We're told of some of the things that we've got terms for people who live like that. And I won't go into that. But the bottom line is, he goes over there. So we're going to read starting in Genesis 14. If you want to read from the beginning, you can see all this built up. I'm going to jump in at 14:11. And we're going to see that the four kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, all their food, and then went away. They also carried off Abram's nephew Lot and all of his possessions, since he was living in Sodom. So there's our buildup of this. We're never going to be safe. They haven't been safe for thousands of years. Perfectly safe. But God's with us every step of the way. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about the wars and rumors of wars. Don't worry about the pestilence and the earthquakes. People will die from things going on in this world. They always have. You either go to God in heaven through death or through, in what we're looking for is the rapture. One way or the other, we're going to the same place. It's just how you get there. And just if you want to pray about anything, make sure that it's, if you come and get me, God, make sure that I'm either unaware or very little aware. It's like the planes that flew into the Twin Towers. Neil deGrasse did a calculation of the people in the back of the plane, how much were they aware of the crash. And he calculated going the speed that that jet was flying, I don't know, 500 miles an hour or less. They weren't climbing or anything special. They were just trying to fly level. And all they knew how to do was fly the planes. They didn't know how to land them. I should have tipped off the instructors. We don't need to know how to land the plane, just how to fly them. Naive. But anyhow, he calculated that it would be a fraction of a second for the front of the plane to hit the building and the back of the plane to catch up and crash into it. A fraction of a second. Like that. The blink of an eye. They would not have been aware of it. So it would have, the death would have been there. They may have known about it. Maybe they hadn't figured it out yet. All right. By the way, the trees are getting more and more colorful. We've got more and more leaves around. Nuts are still falling from trees. It's that time of year. We know the season. We're in the season of the rapture. Okay. So, Lot's been captured, and the people of Sodom and Gomorrah have all been either killed or taken hostage. So in verse 13, a man who had escaped, you're taking that many people, somebody's going to escape, they got out, and came and told Abram. A man who had escaped came and reported this to Abram, the Hebrew, that's what he was called. And now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre of the Amorite. He's in the western side. There's monstrous trees around there were. Mamre the Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and Ashner, all of whom were allied with Abram. And when Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born of his household and went out in pursuit as far as Dan. So he's going over into Jordan area in that. The bottom line was he was so big and powerful that he had 318 trained men in his employ that knew how to defend his possessions. He had his own military force or police force. That's how big he had gotten. And during the night, Abraham divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hoboth, north of Damascus. So they were fleeing, going to the north, where a lot of the enemies of Israel come from. Now, he was so good at this, he recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with the women and other people. So they took a lot of people. They never really talk about, this is patriarchal Bible talk. They don't talk about women most of the time. When they left Egypt, it said that, 1 million plus left Egypt in the Exodus. This is before Exodus. So we're talking about, because he's still called Abram, we're talking about him going in and rescuing everybody. And in verse 17, after Abram returned from defeating, now they're going to go down to all these names, so I'll do my best. Kedorlaomer, and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom, came out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh. That is the king's valley. Then, and this is one of the places you get to see, we're told about the order of Melchizedek. Here we have in 18, then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was a priest of God the Most High, and he blessed Abraham, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of the heaven and the earth, and praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hands. And Abram gave a tenth of everything. Possessions that he recovered, a tenth went to Melchizedek. There are references to that. We've talked about it before. So that's the first time Lot had to be saved. He was only saved simply because of his connection to Abram. We worry about whether or not, we're going to have children go with us to heaven when we are raptured or die eventually. Just have a connection. Be related to someone who does. It's for children. It's not an adult thing. Once you're an adult, you've got your own decisions to make. And it better be to accept Christ. And we know that, later on, and we'll see that we're going to talk about Abraham, when God has finally had enough of Sodom and Gomorrah. You know the story of Abraham arguing with God, discussing with God. Well, God, what if there's 1,000 people in this city? Would you spare the city? Imagine having a relationship with God where you could talk to him like that. I don't know how he talked to him. God help us, Do we just look up into the sky and talk to God, assuming that he's listening? I don't know. But obviously, he could hear both ways somehow. So he argued with God. And God said, I won't destroy it if there's 1,000 people. And I'm not going to go through all the details of it, but he works, how about 500? How about 100? How about 50? 20? 10? Bartering. How about one? God said, I won't destroy it if there's one good person. Well, he got it down to save his nephew. But now the problem is we got to get him out. So he sends his angels to tell Lot, look, you better get out of here now. There's a schedule. We're on, I don't know if do they wear wristwatches to know what schedule they're on? Or do they have like a little, like you see in the Flintstones where they hold up a wristwatch and it's an hourglass? Or it's a sundial, sundial, little vein sticking up and they hold it up. How do they tell time? I don't know. But they knew that God's timeline was in place. And they got him out. Lot's wife was not happy about that. But she went to be with her husband for a little while. But apparently when they got up on some kind of rise where she could look back and see the city, she looked back. Now it wasn't just looking at it. They've been looking at it every day. It was the desire in her heart to be back there. Is why she was turned into a pillar of salt. Okay, so Abraham once again saved Lot. So, you can live in Sodom and Gomorrah and be saved. You better be doing some good. Because in his argument, would you not destroy the city for one good person? Now, good is relevant. But I'm sure Abram had told Lot about God. They'd had discussions. Enough to where Lot knew to trust Abram, knew to trust the angels that came to save him. So we have to get out there. And like I said, it may be a dirty place, but we need to get out there. Don't be afraid of getting dirt on your hands. Plenty of people do. If you haven't seen that show, watch it. He shows by example, Mike Rowe does, in Dirty Jobs. We need to be by example, showing people how to be Christians. Don't just go out talking about it, show it. Picture's worth 1,000 words. You don't have to talk as much if you're living it. But go wherever God wants you to go. Anywhere. And don't worry about it. People do horrendous things for a living that we would not want to do. I can't think of all the different things that he's done, but he's come out looking, black from soot, being inside, scraping the inside of a furnace. These things don't just run indefinitely. You got to clean them. Crawling into things that I would be totally claustrophobic with, to clean the inside of things. Could you do that? Well, I couldn't do it if it's because I'm claustrophobic. I might try it with God and see if I could endure it. He knows I've got this problem. Unless he takes it away from me, I would have difficulty. Would you go to a water treatment plant and ask to swim in their pools? Some of the stuff he's done is that bad. So, get a real job. Don't let the government and their propaganda machine teach you how to hate the government. You hear more nuts falling. Okay, I am doing a dirty job because some people can't imagine going camping full time. Well, I love it. I'm beginning to gather all my stuff together. I have everything I need. I've already replaced my tent because it had already gone through a couple of seasons and it was leaking. I've got my new heater because it got, after a while, anything you buy with money will get old and break. Doesn't matter what it is. My heater, long before the lightning strikes were killing all my devices, my heater basically stopped working. That'd be last winter. But it got all the way to the end, so I got to where I didn't need it. I had two, and I used one. I used the smaller one, but that's all I needed at that point. But now I'm going to be back to having two. And I'm testing it now. I run it to make sure that it can be trusted. I'm running it now. I run it in the house for about a minute or two every once in a while just to make sure that it's going to work unsupervised. You got to test everything. God tests us. It's okay. How are we doing on time? Well, we're good. So get out there. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. The world is a noisy place. Somebody's running a leaf blower, I think. Going to hear a lot of those. There's leaves everywhere. I do is just reach down and pick up some off the deck. They're everywhere. We have to bag them up, get rid of them, turn them into mulch if you've got a place in a garden. Hopefully you do. Even if you're in the city, you can have a garden. It'd be pot-based, but you could have it. Carry your pots, put them outside while the weather's warm, bring them in. Because everybody, even in an apartment, you have a deck. You can have tomatoes out there. I know because I grew up in the 60s, a lot of my friends had tomato plants because their leaves look a lot like marijuana, and they'd put marijuana plants in there with them too. So I know you can grow those on your deck. I'm not an advocate for drugs, but if you're going to do anything, do it safely. Drinking, whatever, do it safely. I don't do any of it, but do it safely. Okay, so that's basically my story for today. God will come and get us at the appropriate time. He may have already saved us many times that we're not even aware of. There may have been a couple of times that we've been aware of. He will come back for the rapture at the right time, at the right second. We will be snatched away. It doesn't take long to snatch something. But we're not going to know. And as we look around the world, there are enough bad things going on that any one of them could trigger our rapture. Now the war is going on. Everybody's talking about it pretty much now. Right now, it can't be any of the biblical wars that we're watching, at least at this point. They could develop into it. They could lead to that part. Read chapter 14. Well, read all of the Bible, but Genesis. It could lead to it because the people that are involved in the end have got to survive this current war. And I'm concerned about our United States troops that are over there. The radical Muslims, and I'm going to make sure that everybody understands this, you don't choose to hate people. That's what we have wars for. We have wars because people learn to hate people, and then they get greedy. And they go, well, the person I hate's got what I want. I'm going to go steal it from them. I might have to kill him while I get it. No. That's the wrong idea. We know that people from the north, probably Russia, are going to come down, be lured down by God to attack Israel. Well, they're not quite ready yet. But they've got all kinds of buildup going on. Of course, we've been watching the Ukraine war. Now, Russia, who's also in Syria, along with the U.S. and a couple of other countries, kind of to police the area. Russia told Iran, you can bring your planes in here and land them at our military base anytime you want. They would rather have Iran come in and attack the U.S. and get into a war than for them to do it. The U.S. is still formidable, even though it's not going in the right direction. It's still formidable. We have our aircraft carrier groups out there now, quite formidable. So Russia's helping Iran. Might eventually lead them to come down here when they decide they've got what they want. They really only want part of Ukraine. That's the corridor for them to get down to the southern area where they want to really have a trade route. They will take all of it because it used to all be part of the Soviet Union, but they don't need all of it. They only want the part that they need for a trade route. What are they going to trade? Well, it might be natural gas that Israel has. So, we're not there yet, but we're getting there. And it doesn't say which war in Revelation 12 it is. They're technically at war. They're at a declared war, so this is a war. It's not like the United States and they're police action. The reason they did that is they didn't have to get full permission of Congress to do that. They could stay in there and keep fighting, spend millions of dollars, lose thousands of lives, and have it not be called a war so that they didn't have to get permission. Technicalities that these lawyers in government come up with. All right. Be safe. Keep the word flowing. People want to know how you can be happy in these times. It's easy. I've got some people in the house that are not happy with the situation. They're not quite ready. But they've heard the word, so they won't have an excuse. And they're Christians. They're just not, they're not trusting God. They're looking at the world going down the tubes. Trust God and don't worry about it. Do what you can to better yourself every day. Doesn't matter whether you can get out or not. You can do better wherever you're sitting. You say, well, I have physical problems. Well, I have a bad knee. I get around. I may eventually get it operated on if we're here long enough. But right now, I can get around. I'm happy with it. Do whatever you can. You go, I may not be able to hike 10 miles anymore. Hike to the mailbox and back. Every day. Keep the regiment going. Our body is designed to be habitual, to have habits. It gets used to habits. If you're doing something every day, it will keep maintaining itself so that you can do that every day. If you stop doing it, your body will stop maintaining itself. We know that people who are bedridden for a long time, their muscles will atrophy, meaning they will get weaker and weaker, and the body won't try to make them stronger on its own. It's just doing what it sees the body needs. So force yourself. Get up and walk a little bit, even if it's just from where you're at to the bathroom. Get up and go. Do what you can to push yourself. Everything's still falling around here. Okay. Don't let the world get to you. Enjoy doing things where you get your hands dirty. Many people do. Farmers. People get their hands dirty. Some people love to have gardens. Yeah. I don't mind getting my hands dirty, but I'm not very good at gardening because I don't have the knowledge. And I'm not really interested in it. There are plenty of people who do. So encourage them. We're getting out of here soon, but I don't know when. Everything that is going on in this world points to God coming back. Soon. Keep the smile going. It takes very little to smile, and that can brighten somebody's day. Till we meet in the clouds, God bless.